Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend them here with me. Now, in today's video, we're going to be going over 3 7-round mock drafts for the Denver Broncos. Of course, I am a Broncos fan, and so these are just different scenarios. We're going to do one in the scenario that the Denver Broncos trade up. We're going to do one in the scenario that the Denver Broncos trade down. And we're going to do one where the Denver Broncos stick and pick at number 12. Now, I will say, when I'm recording this, this is late Monday night of the week of the draft, and you guys are seeing this early Tuesday morning. Well, not early, but you're seeing this at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when I made these mock drafts and put them together, this was a few days ago. This was before the Zach Wilson trade and everything. So I just want to preface that before this video. I still like every single mock draft that happened, and I adjusted the last pick because, of course, we traded our 6th-round pick and got a 7th-round pick. But these still apply, so I just wanted to throw that out there just in case you were curious. But I don't think it affects any of these mock drafts that I did at all. Now, if you do enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. And I'm trying to do this as a career one day. So if you could help me reach my goal by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, that would be awesome. And I just thank you so much for watching anyway, even if you don't. Now, with that being said, let's jump into this. But of course, before we do, as always, I want to remind you that Jesus is King. And I just pray that you give your life to him, as he has got a plan and a purpose for you. And a lot of people think that we have to do all these good works or go to church however many times, or, read the Bible a certain amount of times. And it's not by going to church, reading the Bible, or doing these good works. And those things are important, and we should want to do those as Christians. But the sole things that saves us is the works that Jesus did on the cross, living the perfect life, sacrificing himself for our sins, and rising from the dead 3 days later. And it's because of that sacrifice that we have salvation. That is the only reason we get to go to heaven, is through Jesus and his sacrifice. Now, a lot of people won't like that I'm sharing this message, but I don't care, because it's an important message to me, and so I'm going to try and share the gospel with as many people as possible, even if I have a smaller platform here on YouTube. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in to the first of 3 Denver Broncos mock drafts. So, first things first, I just want to remind you that here is the draft streams. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. On the left, you can see my thumbnail for day 1 of the NFL draft, and I will be live for days 1, 2, and 3. All you need to do is click on this channel, go to the lives tab. You will see day 1 scheduled. I'm going to schedule days 2 and 3 here pretty soon. I might do it of day 1 of the draft, but that way you'll know what times I'm going live. I'm going live at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which is half an hour before the draft starts in Mountain Time. So you just convert that to your time zone. I'm going live a half an hour before. And then on day 2, the draft starts at 5. So I'll probably be going live at 4:30, 4:45. And then day 3, I'll probably be going live like right at 11 when the draft starts in the morning. But those are my estimated times. They could change. So just go check the tab, and I might have it updated on my channel. Now, let's go ahead and let's jump into the actual mock drafts. Here are our current picks, though. So our 1st-round pick is our own at 12th overall. We own our own 3rd-round pick at 76th overall. We own Miami's 4th-round pick at 121st overall. We own Carolina's 5th-round pick, 136th overall. And so this is the first pick in the 5th round. We also own the Jets' 5th-round pick when we traded for Jacob Martin a few years back. We own our own 5th-round pick, which is 147th overall. We own our own 6th-round pick, 203rd overall. And then now, with us trading the 206th pick, we now own pick 256 from the Jets when we traded for Zach Wilson. Now, this first mock draft 1, is going to be a trade-up scenario, and let me know what your favorite mock draft scenario that I'm about to present to you guys is. Which would you prefer to happen on draft day? In my opinion, mock draft 1 is the one that I want to happen, the trade-up scenario, and let's get into that right now. So the trade is going to be with the Arizona Cardinals, and the trade is going to be, we acquire the 4th overall pick in exchange we give up the 12th overall pick, the 76th overall pick, the 136th overall pick, a 2025 first and second round pick, and a 2026 first round pick. And this is because this is not including Pat Surtain. If you're including Pat Surtain, you can probably take out a first round pick, maybe even the 2025 second round pick. But I don't think we're going to trade away Pat Surtain. He is a building block on the team, and he's going to be a pillar of our team after we come out of the rebuild. So you're going to have to give up extra draft capital, but quite frankly, I don't mind, because when you think about the first round pick, we're probably most likely going to go quarterback. So you're using a first round pick on a quarterback anyway. If you don't, we're most likely going to be picking one in the first round next year. And I do not like the 2025 quarterback class at all. So I'm cool with giving up a first round pick in 2025 because I do not like that quarterback class. And then 2026, it would be nice to have, but you have to give up that extra draft capital. But that is the trade with the Cardinals. And with the 4th overall pick, I have us selecting J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. If you guys don't know, McCarthy is my guy. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details here. I've done it in 2 separate videos in my top 10 quarterbacks and in my video titled The Quarterbacks I Want the Denver Broncos to Draft. J.J. McCarthy is my guy. I think he fits Sean Payton's offense perfectly. I think he could be Sean Payton's guy, and a lot of people are saying on Twitter and everywhere, it's like, oh, this takes the Broncos out of trading up for a quarterback. I disagree. We're giving up a 6th round pick for a flyer on a guy who has some upside in Zach Wilson. Does this take us out from trading up? No, absolutely not. I think the Broncos are still going to try and trade up and get McCarthy or get one of the top guys as a quarterback. The reason why I think we traded for Zach Wilson is because Sean Payton is going to start implementing his style of offense. And Zach Wilson fits that offense better as a backup quarterback than Jarrett Stidham does. And Jarrett Stidham, he's on the last year of his deal, could easily be cut could easily be cut after spring training, or not spring training, after the preseason. And then we roll with McCarthy and Zach Wilson, and then you have DiNucci as the practice squad guy. I also think that it could be a little bit of an insurance policy if the Broncos don't trade up, but I don't really like that theory because I still think we'll get Bo Nix, in which case it would make no sense if it was just an insurance policy if we can't get one of the quarterbacks in the draft. I don't like that. I think this is solely to have a better fit as a backup who has high upside, who, if you draft a quarterback, McCarthy doesn't work out, maybe, which I really like McCarthy. I think he'll work out. But then you have Zach Wilson, who's also got high upside, who could potentially, Sean Payton can try and mold. But I don't think Zach Wilson will be our starting quarterback. I think he will be the backup next year, and I don't think Stidham will be the starter either. I think we're still going to be targeting a quarterback, and I'm hoping it's J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. And 40 games with the Wolverines, he has 482 completions on 713 attempts. He's thrown for 6,226 yards, 49 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and he has a passer rating of 160.5. Next up, with our 4th pick, because that is our next pick in the trade-up, I have us selecting Justin Eboigbe, defensive lineman out of Alabama. Eboigbe is one of the better run defenders in the entire class at the interior defensive lineman position, but he does not provide a whole lot of interior pass rush, which honestly to me is fine because we have Zach Allen, DJ Jones is there. We need to learn to stop the run. DJ Jones was a solid run stopper, but at our defensive end position across from Zach Allen wasn't great, and because we need to improve at stopping the run game, I think we need to get a guy who excels at that, and Justin Eboigbe does just that. Now, he can, of course, learn to develop as an interior pass rusher and provide that interior pass rush, but the main reason I am drafting Eboigbe here is because of his run defensive skills. Now, is this a little high? Maybe, but I think this is the proper value of where I have him evaluated. So, to me, Eboigbe here at 121, perfect. We're addressing the defensive line position, which we need to address, and he improves a big area of need, which is stopping the run. In 48 games with the Crimson Tide, he has 58 solo tackles, 65 assist tackles, 123 total tackles, 16 tackles for loss, and 9 sacks. With one of our 2 fifth-round picks, because of course we traded one of the fifth-round picks in the trade-up, I'm selecting Luke McCaffrey, wide receiver out of Rice. Actually played against Luke McCaffrey in high school. Of course, I was a backup quarterback, so I technically didn't play against him because he was a quarterback. Went to Nebraska as a quarterback, then transferred to Rice as a wide receiver. And yeah, I want to see wide receiver depth be added to this team because Cortland Sutton's the wide receiver 1, but who knows if Sutton might be thrown in a trade-up package if we do trade up to go get our guy, or heck, even if he's just traded, or even if he stays on the team on his 1-year contract. You got Tim Patrick back on a 1-year deal. You got Marvin Mims. You got Josh Reynolds as well, but I think we need to add some wide receiver depth, and I love the upside that McCaffrey brings, just the pure athleticism. Of course, has the family history of his brother Christian being on the 49ers, his dad Ed being a former Broncos wide receiver, and so I like the upside that Luke McCaffrey brings as a potential wide receiver. Don't think he'll be necessarily a starter, maybe a special teamer initially, kind of more of a slot guy, I would say, but can play on the outside. But in 44 games at receiver, I can't remember if he played receiver at Nebraska. I don't think he did. But in his 44 games played as a receiver, he has 131 receptions for 1,723 yards, averaged about 13.2 yards per play, and scored 19 touchdowns in his college career. Next up, with pick 147, I'm selecting Jaheim Bell, tight end out of Florida State. If you guys have watched my mock drafts and videos, you'll know that Jaheim Bell is one of my guys. He doesn't bring a lot of upside in terms of blocking at the tight end position, but he is a pure vertical and receiving threat at the tight end position, which is what we need. We got Adam Troutman, who's kind of a balanced tight end. I'd say more so. He's more so of a blocker, but can be a receiver if you need him. And then you look at all the other guys like Lucas Krull, Nate Atkins. Those guys are more of blockers. And then, of course, you do have Greg Dulcich, but he's been injured in his first two seasons in the NFL. And so, I don't know if I can really rely on him to be that tight end 1. Hopefully he can be, but even if he is healthy, I like the upside that Jaheim Bell can be as a receiver playing the tight end position for you. In 43 games with South Carolina and Florida State, he has 95 receptions for 1,260 yards, averaged about 13.3 yards per reception, and scored 9 touchdowns. Next up, in the 6th round pick 203, I have a selecting Daquan Hardy, cornerback out of Penn State. Maybe I'm a little bit higher on Hardy, and I think he could definitely be a 7th round pick, an undrafted free agent. But in my opinion, we need that corner depth. Although we did just sign Levi Wallace today, and like I mentioned, this was made a couple days ago. But I do think we need depth at least for the future as well, because we have Surtain. He's going to be our cornerback 1. Maybe he gets dealt in a trade up. I'm hoping not, but if that's what it takes to trade up, we might have to. And quarterback's a way more important position than corner, as much as it would suck to lose Surtain, and I don't want that to happen. I'd want to trade up by any means necessary, not giving up Surtain. But we got Surtain, we got Jaquan McMillan. We have Levi Wallace, who we just signed. Riley Moss is a young guy. Damari Mathis is still a young guy, but we need depth. And Daquan Hardy provides just that. He would be a depth corner. Might not make an instant impact, might not make an impact at all unless it's on the special teams. Who knows? But I have a selecting Daquan Hardy here at pick 203. In 44 games, he has 40 solo tackles, 20 assist tackles, 60 total tackles. He's defended 19 passes and has 5 interceptions in his career. Next up, with pick 256 in the 7th round, I was selecting Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas. I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a need linebacker is for the Broncos right now. Of course, we signed a couple guys in free agency, but after this year, I believe we only have Alex Singleton under contract at the interior as an inside backer. Of course, Drew Sanders could definitely play inside backer, but it looks like he's moving to the edge to be a pass rusher. So after this season, it's looking like Alex Singleton is going to be the only linebacker left on the team, and he'll only have 1 year left on his deal as well. So I do think we need to, of course, we will probably re-sign some guys or sign some guys in free agency, but we need to have some depth as well, and that's what Jalen Ford provides. He is a depth inside backer. In 42 games with the Texas Longhorns, he had 142 solo tackles, 145 assist tackles, 287 total tackles. He had 145 assists, 287 total, 27 and a half tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 6 interceptions during his career at Texas. Now, that was mock draft 1. Moving into mock draft 2, this is a trade down scenario, in the scenario that, you guys know I want McCarthy, and I'm going to sound like a broken record. That is who I want. I want us to trade up to get him. Maybe he falls to us, but I highly, 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 highly doubt that. So this mock draft is in the scenario that maybe their guy is gone, they like Bo Nix, and they trade down and get him later. So we're going to go cover that right now, but I'm going to take a quick sip of water because my throat is a little dry right now. So in the trade down scenario, it's once again with Arizona, as they have 2 first-round picks. They have the 4th overall pick and the 27th overall pick. In this scenario, we are acquiring the 27th overall pick. We're acquiring the 35th overall pick because they are making a significant jump of 15 spots, which is towards the back end of the first round at 27th overall, and you're jumping into the top half of the draft. So we're getting the first round pick, 27th overall. We're getting an early second round pick, 35th overall. We're getting a 4th round pick, 104th overall, and we're getting a future 3rd round pick, which honestly could be a future 2nd, but based on what I saw, I think a 3rd round would be fair, but we'll have to see. So, with the 27th pick, I was selecting Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. With the 27th pick, I have us selecting Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. That was rough there. But Adonai Mitchell is one of my guys. He's a top 20 player for me in this draft. I love the upside that he brings. He's a fast receiver. He's a dynamic route runner. He's a sure-handed catcher. He's going to catch everything that comes his way. I'd say he's a little bit more raw as he transferred from Georgia. I don't remember if he had a whole lot of production at Georgia. I think he had a little bit, but not a lot. Transfers to Texas, has a huge season, and I think he could honestly end up being our wide receiver 1 of the future. In 35 games with the Texas Longhorns, he has 93 receptions on 1,405 yards, averaged about 15.1 yards per reception, and scored 18 touchdowns in his career. Now, this would provide our future franchise quarterback, whoever that is, with a receiver. I don't want to draft our franchise quarterback next year. I think that's going to be too late for Sean Payton's reign, so he needs to get his guy this year. And I also, like I mentioned earlier, I hate the 2025 quarterback class. I'm not a huge fan of any of those prospects. But yeah, it would provide our future franchise wide receiver or franchise quarterback a true wide receiver 1. Next up, I have another trade. This time we are trading with the San Francisco 49ers. We are giving them the 31st overall pick, or we are getting the 31st overall pick, rather. The 49ers are getting the 35th overall pick. They're moving back 4 spots. And in exchange, they're getting a 5th round pick from us, 145th overall. And this is our middle first round pick. We got one that's earlier and one that's later. So they're picking up a 5th, moving down a few spots. Honestly, could be a 4th, but I did a 5th in this scenario. So if you're a Niners fan watching, could easily be a 4th, but this kind of just shows the purpose of a trade up for the Broncos. And then I have us selecting Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. I would be all right with us selecting Bo Nix at 12 if the top guys were gone. But I would feel much more comfortable being able to trade down, picking up a prospect like Adonai Mitchell, and then trading back into the first round to get Bo Nix. I'd feel a whole lot more confident in that scenario. But I have a selecting Bo Nix in the first round because I like the fifth year option that you can get on a quarterback. You can pick it up if needed, and then you get an extra year. Probably you're going to get an extension done by that point, but you can activate the fifth year option if needed. So that's why I prefer selecting a quarterback in the first round, if they're worthy, of course, to get that fifth year option. During his career with the Auburn Tigers and the Oregon Ducks, Nix played in 61 games, completed 1,286 passes on 1,936 attempts. He's thrown for 15,352 yards, 113 touchdowns to 26 interceptions, and he had a passer rating of 149.6. Next up in the third round, I have us selecting Michael Hall Jr., defensive lineman out of Ohio State. Now, Michael Hall is more of a pass rush interior defensive lineman, does need to work on the run defense, but at this point, I went with the best defensive lineman available, and that was Michael Hall. We do need to address that position at some point. Yeah, we need to address the defensive lineman position at some point in the draft, and I would prefer for it to be earlier in the draft. That would be my preference, would be to do as early as possible. Of course, in the first round, you want to take value. I think we need to take a quarterback in the first round. That is my opinion. That is kind of what I'm firm on, is we need to take a quarterback in the first round. That's what I want, specifically a trade up. But then when you look at it, the next earliest pick that we have, of course, is the third round. Now, if we trade down, we might pick up a sixth. We trade it up like we did again. But as early as possible, I think we need to pick up a guy, and Michael Hall is elite as a pass rusher. And if he can develop as a run stopper, he can be a steal of a pick in this draft. In 26 games, he had 19 solo tackles, 26 assist tackles, 45 total tackles. He has 10 tackles for loss and 6 sacks in his career. Next up, at 104, we already talked about Jaheim Bell in the previous mock, so I'm not going to go over him, but you guys know my thoughts. Adding another receiving tight end with Dulcich, because Dulcich hasn't been healthy his first 2 seasons, really, and so I like the value of a receiving threat at tight ends. At 121, I have us selecting Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee. This is a guy that the Broncos have been connected to, and he is a stud of a running back. And, it was hard for me to select a running back because I like Javonte. Really didn't have the best season, though. I know he was coming off of an ACL injury, but he just did not look the same as he did in his rookie year. So hopefully he can bounce back this year, but this is kind of a contingent policy if he doesn't. I love the upside of a Jalen Wright, and I think he can be a true number 1 running back in the NFL. Of course, we got P. Ryan, but I like him as I like P. Ryan as a nice complementary back, a third down back, which he was used as last season. And then I also like Jaleel McLaughlin, who will get some touches as well. But during his career with the Tennessee Volunteers, he played in 34 games with he had 368 rushing attempts. He rushed for 2,297 yards, averaged about 6.2 yards per rush, and he has scored 18 touchdowns in his career. Next up, with the 5th pick, I have us selecting Bo Limmer, center out of Arkansas. If the Broncos don't address center, it's most likely going to be Alex Forsyth as the starting center. That would be my guess. I know him and Luke Wattenberg are fighting for the job. I think that Alex Forsyth will win that job, but I also think that it wouldn't be a bad idea for the Broncos to target a guy in the draft, and Bo Limmer is a top 5 center for me, I believe. I'm trying to think back to my interior offensive lineman video because it was guards and centers, but Bo Limmer, either way, is a top center in this draft, and I would be ecstatic if we picked him up here in the 5th round. I think this is excellent value, providing upside at the center position. He would instantly go in and compete for that starting center job because we had lost Lloyd Cushenberry. Offensive linemen gelling together, that is important. So even if Forsyth started this year and then Limmer started next year, they would have to build that chemistry. So if you selected a guy, they could build the chemistry this year, and that way they wouldn't have to start developing it next year. But Limmer is 6'5", 302 pounds, 22 years old. And yeah, I love the upside that Bo Limmer brings to the table. Next up at 147, I have us selecting Jarrian Jones, one of two Florida State corners that could be drafted this year. Once again, this is solely just for depth purposes, and I like the upside that Jones brings. I think that Riley Moss should get a chance to go. Damari Mathis might deserve another second chance, but it's Surtain as the number one, McMillan in the slot, and that cornerback two might belong to Levi Wallace. They might give Riley Moss a chance to start right away, but even with Levi Wallace here, he's only on a 1-year deal. So eventually we're going to need depth, and I think Jarrian Jones provides depth at the cornerback position for the Broncos. In 52 games, Jones had 64 solo tackles, 32 assist tackles, 96 total tackles. He had 12 passes defended and 5 interceptions during his career at Florida State. At pick 203, I have us selecting Michael Barrett, linebacker out of Michigan. Once again, this is just, we need a depth linebacker. Not a lot of linebackers under contract next season. So picking up a guy who can be a depth guy, he will provide special teams value as well, but could also inevitably be a starter down the road. I think this season, if we drafted him, he would be a special teamer, backup, would get playing time if there was an injury at the linebacker position. But mostly, I think Michael Barrett would be a special teamer this year, a depth linebacker for the future, and a potential starter depending on how things work out. In 61 games with the Michigan Wolverines, Barrett has 116 solo tackles, 92 assist tackles, 206 total tackles. He has 12.5 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and 2 interceptions in his college career. And then at 256, I have us selecting Eric Watts as that edge out of UConn. Like the upside that he brings. Don't think he's going to start right away. We got a bunch of young guys there, and I think we want the young guys to develop, especially in a rebuilding year. But Eric Watts does provide depth at the edge position, and at this point, you're just looking for the best player. The 7th round, you're looking for the best player available and what upside he can provide, and Eric Watts provides a lot of upside here in the 7th round. Played in 45 games with UConn. Had 64 solo tackles, 89 assist tackles, 153 total tackles, had 23 tackles for loss, and 9.5 sacks in his college career. Now, moving on to mock draft 3. This is stick and pick. This is in the scenario that the Denver Broncos decide, hey, we like what we see here at 12. We're going to pick the best player available that we want, and then we'll figure out the rest later. Now, this is probably my least favorite mock draft because I think we need to take a quarterback in the first round, but we don't. So I have us taking the 4th best receiver in the draft according to my rankings in Brian Thomas Jr. The receiving core is a little bit depleted. Got Cortland Sutton, got Tim Patrick. What will he be like after 2 straight years of injury? Marvin Mims is there. Josh Reynolds we signed, but Brian Thomas Jr., he has the upside to be a number 1 receiver. This season, I think he would be the number 2 guy behind Sutton or behind Reynolds, but inevitably could become that number 1 receiver in a few years down the road. I love what Brian Thomas Jr. brings here. A lot of people might be surprised, like, why didn't we select Lautu? Why didn't we select a tackle? Could have, but if we're going best player available, I'm combining that and a little bit of positional value, and I would rather take a wide receiver here than a tackle or an edge rusher personally. But again, I think we need to take a quarterback in the first round no matter what. And also, by the way, Brock Bowers was not available. Brock Bowers and Rome Odunze, if either one of them were there, I would have picked them here, but they weren't, so we're getting Brian Thomas Jr. here. In 38 games with the LSU Tigers, Thomas has 127 receptions for 1,897 yards, averaged about 14.9 yards per reception, and scored 24 touchdowns. Now, we have another trade, once again with the Arizona Cardinals, and we're acquiring the 35th overall pick in the 2nd round, and in exchange, Arizona gets our 3rd round pick this year, 76th overall, 121st overall in the 4th round, 145th in the 5th round, and a 2nd round pick in 2025, and that is important because If they're picking at 35 and they don't get a pick again till the third round because they're dealing this pick, we have to include a future pick. You can honestly probably include another future pick if you needed. But as for right now, this is the trade. And with the 35th overall pick, I have us selecting Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. And honestly, these first two picks are pretty solid with Brian Thomas Jr. and Bo Nix. I'd be okay. We got our potential franchise quarterback of the future. We also got a potential wide receiver one of the future. It's just so unrealistic to me, in my opinion, to trade up to the 35th overall pick to get Nix, because if no one takes him in the first, I think this is around the range he goes, is 30 to 40. That's my estimated range. So it would just be so hard to get up there and select Bo Nix. So that's why I'm not really taking this one as my favorite, because it would just be so hard. It would be so hard to trade up for Bo Nix if we don't take him in the first round, or we don't trade back in the first round. It would just be tough. So we'll have to see. But if we got both of these players, I'd be ecstatic. My preference would be JJ McCarthy, but if we got Bo Nix and a wide receiver like with like Brian Thomas or Adonai Mitchell in the first, or I guess and last mock in the trade down, I'd be ecstatic. Fifth round, once again, Jaheim Bell. Not going to explain much again because he's been in all the mock drafts. At 147, I have us selecting Jordan Jefferson, defensive lineman out of LSU. Once again, I'm starting to pick this up because this is becoming a little bit longer of a video. But I have us selecting Jordan Jefferson out of LSU. Going to be able to provide some run support, some pass rush from the interior. Could be a day one starter. I think he would compete with Matt Henningsen, Ioma Uwazurike, and the other defensive ends to be that starter as an interior guy, because in a 3-4 system, the defensive ends are interior rushers. And so I think he would be put in a competition to play and earn the starting spot. And I think he would beat out a guy like Matt Henningsen personally. This is one of 3 LSU defensive linemen getting drafted. It's him, Mekhi Wingo, and Mason Smith. But during his career with the LSU Tigers, Jefferson played in 41 games with 36 solo tackles, 54 assist tackles, 90 total tackles, 21.5 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. And by the way, I think he's son of another LSU Tiger quarterback, Jordan Jefferson. So I think this is Jordan Jefferson Jr., but I'm not 100% on that, so that's why I really didn't include it in this video. Next up at pick 203, once again, I have us selecting Michael Barrett, linebacker out of Michigan. Kind of already went over this, so I'm going to skip him for now. And then in the 7th round, pick 256, I have us selecting Charles Turner III, center out of LSU. Remember the last time we selected an LSU center who was the third in his last name as well? Yeah, that was Lloyd Cushenberry, just signed with the Titans this offseason, so we're getting another LSU center here in this mock who has third in his last name. And yeah, it's Charles Turner III. And I don't know if he would necessarily start right away, but him and Alex Forsyth, both 7th round picks, both would be competing for the starting center job this year. Turner is 6'4", 303 pounds, and his hometown is in Canton, Ohio. But those are my final 3 mock drafts of the 2024 NFL draft cycle. The draft is only a few days away. When you're seeing this on Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, is the final day before the draft, which I will be releasing my final full first round mock draft, full 32 teams. And then on Thursday, I will be releasing the top 5 scenarios that I want to occur for the Denver Broncos on draft day. So yeah, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Got a ton of videos coming out your way. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.